Welcome to the Beat the Banks podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Fuller, and I've got Monty Flack in the studio today. And Monty, today we're going to be diving into your journey from being a school teacher to financial freedom in 6 years. And so for everyone listening, when we say financial freedom, I'm going to go ahead and call that your minimum freedom number. And what that's referring to is anytime your passive income, so money you're not actively working for, so your passive income is $1 more than your current monthly expenses, we would call that financial freedom. I would say that's your minimum number. Now, Monty, you were able to do this in a 6-year time frame, still as a school teacher, correct?
Yes.
So let's talk about that journey. You're a school teacher for how long?
I was a school teacher for 14 years. And what's interesting about that is when I became a school teacher in the late 90s, I sat down with an experienced teacher and I asked for advice, financial advice, because they come to you with all these retirement plans, qualified plans and everything. So I went to people and did common practice. And later on through my journey in 2003, something happened in my life that I needed access to that money. And because of where I had put that money, the environment that it was in, I couldn't access it, and really put me in a bind. And it made me start thinking, because all of a sudden, because I was a school teacher, you would get these state notifications of your retirement from the state, right? And I started looking at these numbers and I go, oh my gosh, how am I going to retire off of this? And then I gave my Social Security statement and said, wow, between these two, I'm going to be taxed on this little bit of money. And so I started taking a different route. I started exploring things and I found a mentor, and it just so happened to be my chiropractor at the time. And he was very well off, real estate investor, chiropractor. He did all kinds of things and he had all these streams of income. And so he started teaching me what he was doing. And that's how I got into the real estate game while I was still teaching.
Okay, so let's do a little deep dive on this. So
Sure.
You're a school teacher.
Yeah.
You're automatically investing into a retirement program.
Into the state retirement program. But then I went above that and contributed to my 403B, which is equivalent to a 401k for nonprofits.
You did something in addition to what they kind of automatically sign you up for.
Correct.
So when we talk about investing, we like the word intentional.
Yes.
Right? And so I think it gets dangerous when we automatically invest, especially in things that we might not know and understand, because this was very similar to my journey too with my Roth IRA when I was 16. I wasn't intentionally investing in that. I was automatically investing.
Right.
Those two words are going to have a huge impact on your wealth. So the other thing you mentioned was awareness. So early on in our key components of wealth building that we educate, clients and prospects on is you got to have some education under your belt. You need to learn the rules of the money game. And the very next thing we'd go to is financial awareness. So you kind of took a step back and you started to get aware of what was going on in your life. You're getting these statements saying, I'm automatically putting money in here, and this is not going to be enough for me to retire on, which forces you to kind of stop. And then you take a step back and you kind of look at what's going on. Then you sought out a mentor. Mm-hmm. I'm going to this chiropractor probably regularly, and you're looking at his lifestyle saying, this guy's doing pretty well. He's got other businesses he owns. He's got revenue coming in, lots of cash flow. And this was early on in your real estate journey now.
Correct. And you mentioned the word awareness. I was aware of what was going on first, and then I had to go into some financial literacy. I had to learn what these definitions were because I was doing automatic, thinking I was saving. And I had to learn that what I was doing was not saving, right? It was actually speculating because in 2001, September 2001, the Sears Towers come down and I lost over half my money. And that made me realize, I didn't realize it then, but when I started researching, getting that financial literacy, I realized the difference between savings and investing and speculating. And that's when I started being more intentional with what I was doing.
Absolutely. So let's cover those definitions real quick. If we're going to save money actively, savings is the process of putting money in environments that are liquid and safe so you have access to them, because your savings is meant to do just that. It's to save you in time of need or to help you jump on opportunity. So savings environments have to be very different than an investing environment. And so you said investing and speculating. So we would say that, investing is something you do very intentionally, only in things you know and understand. That's what it means to be an investor, which is why they rarely, if ever, lose money. Now, speculating feels and kind of looks like investing. It's just a lot different because you're still separating that control of money in your life, just like investing. The difference is when you speculate, the odds of you getting that money back are so low, right? I would call speculating and gambling very similar definitions. So you're putting money into your 403B, your retirement program through the state. I was putting money in a Roth IRA. I didn't understand the fee structure. I didn't have control of the money. I didn't know what it was truly invested in. So I could not call that investing. Did you have the same experience with your retirement programs?
Yeah. They just signed me up for my 403B and said, we're going to put it in here. And I thought, okay, great. Out of sight, out of mind kind of thing, with the hopes that I would have this, big nest egg to retire off of and live comfortably. But there's so many other components once you start getting that financial literacy and becoming more aware of what I was actually doing. Because you brought up the environment. What environment was it in? Well, they say tax deferred, but in the situation that we're in our country, our taxes going up or going down. So I was putting away a good dollar at today's tax bracket for who knows what tax bracket it would be in. So just being aware of that environment where everything was going on and being conscious now, being aware of these things, I'm more intentional. And because of the intentionality and knowing the difference between savings, investing, and speculating, and what is the proper environment for each component, I have never lost a dollar since I've learned that.
Since you became a true investor.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so you hit on something that I want to go into right now as well, because I think a lot of times we think it's the product or it's the environment that's the problem, right? And so we put money into these retirement programs. So let's just think about that idea and that philosophy for a second. You're saving money into a retirement program. Why? So you can retire at some time in the future. So is that really the problem? Is how much money we have in retirement programs?
No.
I would go a little bit deeper and say, what are you trying to retire from? Maybe that's the real problem.
Right.
Now, I know you love educating. So you probably enjoyed being a teacher.
I did.
You still do. You're still an educator, just in a different realm.
Right.
Right. So you enjoy educating. We know that the purpose of life here is to serve as many people as possible. That's where we get that sense of fulfillment, pride, joy. And so when we're focused on putting money in these retirement programs, like what are we trying to escape from? I cannot wait until we can retire. Well, what is it that you're doing right now that you're so anxious to retire from? What if we just fixed that? Would you even need retirement in the future?
No, you wouldn't. The problem with that, and this is the thing with retirement, is that's what the norm is, right? That's what the common, right? And what is the 401k, the 403b, all these qualified plans? The common, because that's what society tells you you're supposed to do. It's not when you take a step back and you start analyzing your life, taking a good look at it, and finding out what you truly want in life. Do I ever want to retire? No. All I did was transition from teaching. People go, oh, you retired from teaching? No, I didn't. I was too young to retire. I just transitioned. And what I do now, I absolutely love. And I will do it till the day I graduate from this earth.
So what a powerful idea right there. Because you transitioned still into education just around money now. Mm-hmm. And so you talked about you were doing very common things with your money, which most Americans are taught to automatically invest money into very common environments like 401ks. And there's nothing wrong with 401ks. That's a wonderful habit to be in, is putting money away for a later date. But I think we can do better than that, because when you go start studying the uncommon people, the very wealthy, you understand that their flow of money, their habits, are very different. I'm going to say exactly opposite of the middle class. And so you sought out this wealthy chiropractor who started teaching you about money and became a good mentor of yours. And he was not doing common things. He was doing uncommon things. He was focused on cash flow. He was growing a business. He was serving people. And so I think this is what makes our Factum community so unique, is that our conversations start with this idea of life includes 5 areas: spiritual, personal, family, financial, and occupation. And I think most people are searching for the perfect life. They think it's out there. We're just really programmed to look at it in a much different light. And so if once you realize that the perfect life where you're going to wake up and enjoy every second of every day only happens when you have abundance in all 5 areas of life. You got purpose in your life. You got a good relationship with yourself. Your health is in order. Your family life is abundant. You're having great experiences with your family. Your finances are supporting that perfect life, which, by the way, would a retirement program saving into it for 30 years, was that ever going to fund your perfect life?
No.
You'd have to wait 30 years to do it. And we're going to get to this in a second, but you were able to win the money game in 6 years. So we're going to come back to that. And then your occupation. You still loved educating. You just transitioned to a different field. And now you coach and train many of our Factum agents here on how to be successful and grow a business in the life insurance realm. Now, retirement's not on your radar, but what is creating more cash flow to enhance all of those areas of life. Now, why is that conversation not happening in middle America? We're so programmed to work really hard, Monty and Kyle, save up into these retirement programs. And when you're 65 and when I'm 65, we can start using that money to go live. The problem is you got very little life left at that time. You know, statistically, I should live 35 years after that time frame, but I'm going to give up some of the best years of my life and all that money. Why is that money not put in environments where I have control, accessibility, that I can jump on opportunity to create cash flow, to take my family on more vacations, to give more to the charities and causes we love and support? Why are we not taught to focus on cash flow? We're taught to focus on accumulation. And that's part of the game that's being played right now.
Right. And if you recall, our mentor used to say, when you woke up this morning, did you think of, I'll just change one word here, nest egg or cash? Did you look to see if you had enough money to buy that coffee, that your lunch, whatever the case is, on a daily basis? You weren't thinking of this nest egg at the end, upon retirement. You're thinking of daily cash flow, because I need that cash on a daily basis to go ahead and pay my bills, to do the things that I want to do. And like you said, to have abundance in those 5 areas. I can only do that with cash flow.
So let's think about that for a second. You wake up and you need cash in your life every single day.
Yes.
You got to drive your car. You got to pay a mortgage. You got to go to lunch. You got to take clients to lunch. You know, we got to buy things for our kids. We got to go on vacations. We need to give money. All of that requires income or cash flow. So that should be the number one focus in our lives, is creating cash flow. Enough cash flow to surpass what it costs us to live every month. Once that happens, we would say you've achieved financial freedom, or we'll say the minimum number. Now, if you want to go to the maximums, which we'd call your infinite freedom number, that's going to be a multiplier of your monthly expenses. So it might be 10 times your monthly expenses in cash flow or passive income. It could be 20, depending on how big that vision is for your life when you're living abundantly in all 5 areas. And so that is the key we should focus on. And let's go a little bit deeper on this one, because when you start taking a step back, like Nelson Nash always said in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker, you take a step back and just stop for a second, look at what's going on, you'll know exactly what to do. So when you start studying some of the best players in the money game, like Wall Street, big banks, giant corporations, they all understand that cash flow is the key to life. But yet we're taught to look at accumulation. So let's just look at both sides of that equation. Wall Street told me as a 16-year-old, fund this retirement program, and then you could retire maybe by the time you're 45, not even 65. Shoot, that sounds really good, right? Especially being a young kid. I didn't enjoy going to school. I didn't love working at the time because I hadn't found my passion. So retiring early was like dream come true. And so what did I do? I consistently put money away from my control into an asset, this retirement program. Now, did that create cash flow for my life? No, it's the exact opposite. It actually took money out of my pocket. It goes into an account that someone in the money game was managing. Now, if Wall Street's on the other side of that equation, Monty, I'm sending them money every single month. What is money coming into their pockets, their control every single month called?
Cash flow.
Cash flow. It's income.
Yeah.
So they are saying, pay us consistently as possible for as long as possible. Now I'm 65, I'm 45, whatever it is. And they say, okay, you can retire. But now that you've built up this $3-4 million nest egg, Kyle, you need to be careful you don't spend it all down too quickly. So we're going to do what's called a Monte Carlo simulation, which is going to predict how much money you can take out of that account to make it last the rest of your life. And that number is like 3% conservatively, right? So I worked my tail off my whole life to fund this retirement program, which is cash flow for Wall Street. And then when it's time for me to actually start living, they say, take it as slowly as possible. Isn't that exactly what you'd want someone to do so you can stay in control of the money for a longer period of time? So it's like when you take a step back and look at this, all you have to say is, why am I not doing that same thing just for my life? Why do I not focus on cash flow for my life instead of creating it for them? And the banks operate the exact same way.
Yeah, and that's what happened when I took a step back and looked at the whole thing. I saw what my state retirement was, and I'll share it. It was predicted to be $2,400 a month. Well, that's taxable income. But all this time, who had control of that money? Someone else did. My Social Security was projected to be $1,200. Total, we're looking at, $42,000 a year of cash that I can retire on. Well, that's taxable income. Has the cost of living gone up? Just since I'd left teaching. I left teaching in 2012. Inflation has gone up, right? It's called a hidden tax. Is that accounted for within that retirement system? No. So when you talk about the Monte Carlo effect, you got $3 million and you're only take out 3% of that. They're still in control of your money, but do you even have enough money to live off of now? And especially if you're in a qualified plan where you still got to pay taxes on that money, like in my state retirement and so forth. I put where my lifestyle has diminished because of that, because I gave up control. But since I've taken back control of my money, that hasn't happened. My lifestyle has actually expanded because my cash flow has increased.
So you had to change your strategy, change some of your habits to really change your life.
Correct. And part of that was when I looked at those numbers, $2,400 a month and $1,200 a month, I said, my gosh, if I'm going to do this, continue to do this, I have to create additional income, because it was projected also that Social Security won't be there by the time I was of age to have it. So what am I going to do to replenish that income? And that's how I started buying real estate. My mentor started teaching me, this is how you do it. And it just been a blessing that I started buying rental property, income property, with no money out of my pocket. You used to see these advertisements, how to buy, real estate with no money down and things. I was able to do that, and very blessed that I was in that situation. And we started creating additional income. And it was very interesting at the time. My goal was only an additional $400 or $500 a month. If I figured if I can create that, I can pay my bills and live a little nicer. But once you start learning a little bit more about money, it was no more difficult to make $10 than it was $1. And because of that, I was able to expand how much real estate I bought. And my wife and I did quite well with that. And it was all because of what my mentor had taught me. And we increased that. And like you said, what is your freedom number? With the real estate we had at the time, and I don't know why I kept such good track of all this, but when my passive income from my real estate surpassed what I made contractually as a school teacher, not even what my expenses were, because my expenses were underneath what I was earning at the time. But once my passive income surpassed my earned income, that's when I walked away from teaching. And because of that and some other things I did, I went ahead and pulled my state retirement and things like that. But that was something I chose to do.
Right. So think about that time frame, because that was like a 6-year time frame buying real estate.
Right.
That you got to that point and then you walked away from teaching.
Right.
So compare that to what most common Americans are doing with retirement vehicles. They've bought into this idea of pay into this program, give up the control. There's no certainty there. It's not a bad habit to be in, but is it the best habit to be in? I'm going to go ahead and say no.
No. Yeah.
And so you, in a 6-year time frame, started making more money passively from your real estate properties you were buying than what you were making as a school teacher, which allowed you to go do whatever you wanted at that time. Think about how powerful that is in comparison to the plan that you were on before, which was probably a 30-year plan. And even at the end of 30 years, hopefully, maybe, most likely not going to happen though, you'd be living on $3,000 to $4,000 a month before taxes. We don't know what taxes are going to look like in the future, but we can guess that they're going to be higher. We didn't exactly know inflation would be running rampant like it is right now. What would that have done to your retirement, that plan, if you had stayed that course?
Wow. I would have had to find a second job or continue teaching anyway.
How many Americans do you think are in that boat?
Oh,
we see it every single day.
It's very common, yes.
And so, when we started mapping a lot of this out, Monty, because I remember sitting in one of our first offices years ago, and we started mapping out how long did it take you to win the money game? How long did it take me to win the money game? And we built this flow on my whiteboard. Do you remember that?
Yes, yeah.
And when we took a step back, we're like, the average person should be able to do this in about 5 to 15 years. If they educate themselves, they have some awareness, they focus on cash flowing assets. And we took a step back and we looked at each other, we're like, hey, this is exactly what you did and it's exactly what I did.
Right.
And, the money game, it is simple. It really is. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's not complicated. We've been led to believe that building wealth is complicated, which is why you need to give up your control of your money, let someone manage it for you, the state, financial advisor, whoever it is. Nothing against financial advisors, but there's a lot of us out there that want the control in our hands because we think we can do better with it than anyone else.
Yes. Goes back. Since I've taken control of my money, being responsible for it and being intentional where I put it, how I use it, I've never lost a penny. When I had given up control, I lost quite a bit of money. So going back to the whole process is the money game simple? It's not difficult. It's just learning the rules within the money game. Like I said earlier, it's no more difficult to make $10 than it is $1 once you learn how to do it. And that was the whole thing. And that was what I was able to do with real estate. And then from real estate, my mentors approached me one day. He says, I'm learning this new concept, and it's called becoming your own banker. As soon as he told me about that, then I was invited to a workshop, and I combined my real estate along with becoming your own banker with the life insurance policy.
Absolutely. So let's go into that a little bit and talk about why those two concepts together are so powerful. So let's go back to our definitions, Monty, of investing and banking. So you are now a real estate investor because you actually know and understand enough about real estate to be called an investor. I would not consider myself a real estate investor. I have to leverage everything from professionals, because if I go to try to do it myself, I would be speculating. I would be an emotional buyer. I wouldn't know how to run the numbers, so most likely I would lose. So I got to call it what that is. I would be called a real estate speculator, so which is why I put that off and I lower the risk by using professionals who do know real estate. And so our definition of investing is intentionally separating your control of money with the expectation that additional money returns in the future. So you would intentionally separate your control of money in your retirement program. The difference is there was zero expectation that additional money was going to come back in the future because you had none of the control. We don't really understand the fee structure. We can't get access to the dollars. There's a lot of things that are not working for us in that plan. So we cannot call that investing. We got to call it what it is, speculating. When you started learning about real estate, you still were separating your control of money, putting it into the real estate deal, but you were educated now. So your expectation that it was going to produce cash flow for your life goes up, and you proved to be very good at that. So that's the definition of investing. Then your chiropractor mentor says, You're doing great. I'm doing great. Now it's time to learn this strategy of becoming your own banker. Now, the banking definition is exactly opposite of the investing definition. So our definition of banking is intentionally keeping your flow of money permanently in an environment where you have complete control and accessibility. That is the exact opposite definition of investing. And when you have both of those elements together, now you've got something very powerful, because we work with a lot of real estate investors, Monty, and I'll tell you some of their biggest pain points are their savings and their cash accounts. See, they don't understand a better savings environment, which is why we love whole life insurance, and they don't understand the banking flow of money. Lots of real estate investors we work with are great at finding deals, creating cash flow. But where's that cash flow flowing to? Where is it residing? In a checking account where the banks want you to save? Or are you going to put it into an environment that has a lot more benefit, like whole life insurance? Now, once those dollars from the cash flow are coming back to your whole life system, which is what that chiropractor was teaching you, those dollars are captured, controlled permanently in an environment that you always have control and accessibility. So you couple that with a long-term buy and hold strategy for real estate, suddenly you've got the best of both worlds working for you, which is now a transformation that's really going to affect you long-term.
Yes. The power behind that, when you start talking about banking and real estate and what environment are you in, right? The thing with real estate is you got to buy right. When you buy right, you create that cash flow. Now, where's that cash going? Is it going back to the bank where they have complete control and use of it? Or is it going back to something that I own and control and have complete use of? Once I learned that, and I can start shifting that money from the bank, the commercial bank, into my life insurance policy, into this environment, a multitude of things happen. Now I was giving my dollar, not just one job, it had multiple jobs. It was buying me death benefit. It was compounding. It was giving me dividends. It was giving me all these other things. And I still had access to it. And I know you're going to talk about this here in a second, about all those components to that. But the thing about it is, the thing that real estate and my life insurance policy have in common is leverage. I was able to use my very first property that I bought, and I used the equity in that property to buy my next property, to buy my next property, to buy my next property, and create more cash flow. When we start diving into it, and I know we're not going deep into this, but the thing about real estate is I had a mentor. He was showing me how to buy real estate. I had another mentor also. I seldom talk about this other one, but she helped me run the numbers. She always helped me run the numbers to make this, is it a good cash flowing asset? Is it a good buy? So I wasn't on my own. I had coaching, I had guidance. I had mentors along the way. Once I started putting my money into life insurance, I got to do the same thing. I got to leverage the cash value, the equity in my life insurance to go do even more deals. But once again, I had mentors that guided me to show me how to do these things. And that's what you do, right?
Right.
That's what we do here at Factum Financial.
We are educators and mentors for the infinite banking concept. That's the only thing we do. That's what we specialize in. And so seeking out a good mentor is absolutely going to, one, speed up your time frame,
Right.
help you become more profitable, because you're following essentially a system and a model. Before you jump in there and try to figure everything out on your own, find someone who's already done what you're wanting to do, and you'll condense that time frame tremendously, which is why you were able to have so much success as a real estate investor so quickly. Now, when you started doing a lot of that, did you have a lot of other school teachers come to you, Monty, and ask you like, hey, how are you walking away from teaching,
It was very interesting that didn't happen. They saw that I was buying real estate, and it was just a little joke. Oh, you're becoming a slumlord, right? Because I was teaching and managing my properties. And so it was just a little joke. But have you ever heard the expression, you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with?
Absolutely.
So while I was learning about real estate and starting to acquire real estate, my mentor was a millionaire, right? Both of my mentors were millionaires. So I started thinking a little differently. I didn't hang out with school teachers very much anymore. Because what was my income when I was when I was a school teacher and hanging out with school teachers? It was what school teachers make. When I started finding mentors and learning from them and not spending as much time with teachers, during the work hours, 8 to 4, I was with teachers and so forth. That was fine. But after that, I was going to workshops. And that's how I met you, at a workshop with mentors and people that thought a little differently. We were talking about common and versus uncommon earlier, that were doing uncommon methods. And once we started doing that, things changed tremendously. And that was the shift from being able to go from a school teacher to, I don't want to use the word retirement, but leaving the teaching system, at the age of 45.
Just provided you more options.
And that's the whole thing about life, right? Is just, what are my options? What can I do? And this goes back to the 5 circles of life and having abundance in all 5 circles. And part of that is the financial circle to have abundance in all 5 aspects. But it was creating that cash flow that allowed us to do what we do.
Which is why we say creating cash flow is the number 1 rule of winning the money game. There are rules to the money game, and money is a game. If you don't know the rules, if you don't know the language of money, it's really hard to win.
Right.
Dang near impossible. You might get lucky here and there, but if you can understand the language of money, the rules of money, it is so simple to win. It's just not easy. You're going to have to educate yourself, become aware, change some of your habits like you did. You had to change who you were hanging out with, probably how much you were saving, change your lifestyle a little bit, but look at the life it's created for you now. Could you ever imagine going back to just school teaching?
No. It's very difficult to, there's so many great things about being a school teacher, and part of it is the relationship with the students, right? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the aspects I truly miss. But the other aspect where, I had to be at a certain location from 8 to 4 every single day, 180 some days a year, where I was confined to that. And the part of that is I was restricted on how much money I can make in that time frame, because the school teacher's contractual position. So even when I left teaching, I'll share with you, I was making $47,000 a year. By the time you take out taxes, I was lucky if I took home, $1,400 a paycheck every 2 weeks. Well, when you have rent, you have, vehicle payment, utilities, kids, and everything else, that amount of money doesn't go very far. And then you throw inflation into it and things like that. Yeah, you have more month than you have money. So you have to start thinking, what's another way that I can create some cash flow? And that's what led me to what I do.
Absolutely. And it's why we're so passionate about education and teaching. So some of the biggest problems that we're addressing here at Factum, Monty, is we have a savings problem as Americans. We have no problem generating income, because even an income of $47,000 a year gross is substantially more than the top 1% even of income earners worldwide. We're incredibly blessed to live here in the United States, the land of opportunity. And income is definitely not our problem. It's a savings problem. On average, Americans save less than 5% of their income.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of that savings, is it going into true savings environments? No. It's probably going into some type of retirement program, which is not a savings environment. Okay, that is an investment. It could lose value. And so when we look at all these things, what you were doing as a school teacher, what many other school teachers are still doing, I don't think it's going to pan out very well for them financially unless they stop for a second and kind of have that light bulb moment like you did. Something's not quite right with our financial system. Maybe I need to seek out better education, different education, find a mentor, and do something a little bit different. And in a 6-year time frame, you were able to really change your entire life and look at where you're at now and where you're going now versus those first 6 years of real estate. And that's the compound effect.
Yeah. What's interesting, at an early age, we would have to save to go out and buy something, right? And if you wanted a bike, you had to work and save to go pay for that. And then I think it was probably in the 80s when things really changed, and, having access to cash and taking out loans and so forth, and exchanging time for money, and transferring all your money away really exploded. And from that time, you really saw a decrease in the savings rate. And then when you top it off, where people that think they're saving, they're not really saving, and because of the environment they're choosing to put that money in. So nowadays, you see instant gratification. People want gratification. They want it, and they want it now. And because of that, they go ahead and finance things. And because of that also, the savings rate is less than 5%.
And one of the reasons why that's so dangerous is I bet you a lot of people who will hear this podcast will say, "Oh, I should do that. This is my call right now. I need to go invest in real estate, but I don't got any money. I have no funds in my opportunity account."
Yeah.
Well, one, probably because they haven't been saving, or two, they have been saving. It's just not in the right environment. It's in an environment they don't have control and access of the money. It's in a Roth IRA. It's in your state retirement program that's not self-directed, right? So they have money, they just can't get access to it, which is why they can't jump on opportunities. So we got to really rethink our thinking. And that's, one of the concepts that Nelson Nash teaches in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker. And so he addressed something else in there that he calls the problem. And this problem, I'm convinced, keeps more people from reaching their max potential than anything else. And he said, you finance everything in life. You either borrow money and pay interest, or you use your own money and give up interest you could have earned. Now, this is where it affects all parties, because the people that are not investing, they are borrowing money to finance vehicles, boats, their lifestyle, and they're paying up interest payments, right? And so at a certain point, we get tired of that. So we say, we got to stop doing this, and we got to just save up and pay cash. But when we pay cash, we also give up the future value of those dollars, what those dollars could have earned for us. We'd also call that an interest cost. And an interest cost stays with you for your entire life. And so when we teach whole life insurance with real estate investing, what we're really teaching is flowing your money to a more superior savings environment. Because when you have it sitting in whole life insurance, which is a savings environment, not an investment, it's a big distinction you have to understand early on. You get a lot of benefit and a lot of jobs for your dollars that can then be deployed to go make your real estate deals. Now, one of the big problems that we see a lot with real estate investors is they're always in a hurry because they know time is money. They're trying to turn the money just like banks would. I can't have my cash sitting in a checking account. We got to get it into a flip, into a hold to create cash flow, whatever it is. But see, when our dollars are sitting in our whole life policies, we're earning a guaranteed interest rate every single day for life. So those policies are also producing a form of passive income. It's just very private. It doesn't show up in any report, but you can use it to then go leverage, buy a property to create cash flow. Hopefully the person's directing that cash flow back to the savings environment, which is their whole life policy. Now you've got that banking function and your investing function working at the same time.
Yeah, and that just comes along with a little education, right? And so forth. It's very interesting because the savings problem, when I started my journey, one of my first assignments from my mentor was to sit down and calculate my debt to income ratio, how much I was making, how much was leaving my account, my house. And part of that was to calculate how much I was saving. So you said right now in America, the savings rate is less than 5%. I recall when I first did this, my savings rate was 3%. So the very first thing I had to do was increase that, and it became a habit. And I would add a little extra money here and there. And because of that, one of the easiest ways to do that was quit eating out, because so much money was being spent just doing that. I started increasing my savings. Now, because of that, I was able to change where I was saving my money and putting it into a whole life insurance policy. And like you said, as soon as I put $1 in there, it will work for me for the rest of my life. As I understand that, as I go along, it starts creating cash flow because of the constant compounding, right? And I can still access it to go buy real estate because I learned about life insurance, infinite banking after I had real estate. So what I started doing is I started borrowing against my life insurance policy, lending it to my real estate entities to do upgrades, which allowed me to raise the rent because now they have better amenities and so forth, which created more cash flow. And because of my mentors, I was able to flow that money back into my life insurance policies, which meant I had access to more money. My money had been growing, the constant compounding, and it just exploded. And the more I did that, think of it this way. Have you ever watched the Olympics? And especially with track and field, if there's a running event going on and the wind's blowing behind them, pushing them forward, right? And let's say they set a world record. They don't accept that as a world record because it was wind aided. But in life insurance, what's happening because of that compounding, right? Because our money's still growing I can use it all I want and it's still growing. That's like creating that wind. It's pushing me constantly forward. And this goes back to the environment. Having the right environment for my savings, not investing, nothing else. You said it very well a minute ago. Let's put our money into a very good, solid savings position. Now I can borrow against my policy and go deploy it if I want to invest in real estate, invest whatever other case. But now I have a flow of money back into my policies where I keep 100% control of it.
That's a good analogy, the wind in your back. And, but it picks up every single year.
Yeah.
Imagine that wind getting stronger and pushing you further and further with less effort at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, it's a great point you made. And, like going back to just even cutting down on like, hey, we gotta eat out a little bit less, save some more money. Simple, but not easy, right?
Yeah.
Because we like to go out for tacos
tacos.
Pizza, whatever it is, barbecue, simple. We know what to do. It's just a matter of doing it. And it's one of the reasons why I love the concept of becoming your own banker. Every now and again, we'll get someone that's like, is this a scam? Is this one of those things? People are they're interesting. And the reason this concept, this book is not a scam, is because the first third of the book has nothing to do with strategies or illustrations or a product. It has everything to do with changing your behaviors around money. Because if you can't change your behaviors, like Nelson said in his book, you're basically destined to be a slave. You'll be a slave to your money your whole life. I don't hear that many other people in the financial realm talking about you got to take more control. Most of the time it's just put it over here into this fancy IUL or whatever it is, and all your dreams are going to come true. It's that easy, right? Yeah. But there's no empowerment there. No. There's no change of habits. A product is not going to change your life. Your habits that you change and control will change your life.
Yes, and it's taking responsibility for your life, for your actions, being very intentional. There was a book I read one time, and something went wrong with the project. And the owner of the company walks into the room with all these people in there and said, who's responsible for this mess up? Nobody raised their hand. He says, I need to talk with the person responsible for this. And still nobody. So he did a little clarification there. He said, I want to talk with the person responsible for this mess up because that's the only person that can fix it, can change it. If I transfer my money away from me, give it to a qualified plan, 401k, whatever other case, and something goes awry, because I have no control over that situation, I cannot fix it. The only thing I can do is maybe quit contributing to it or transfer my money from one stock or wherever it's allocated to a different place. But it does not fix the problem of me losing money. When I put my money in life insurance, I know I will never lose a penny just because of the way it's structured. Life insurance happens to be the safest place in America to put your money. And then when you put in some of the key features, constant compounding, access to it, privacy you mentioned, and there's some other attributes that go along with it, I can control those. Mm-hmm. If I make a mistake, it's because, like you said, it's human behavior. I haven't conditioned myself or created that habit to handle something in a particular way.
And that's why we're so passionate about education, because it has to be something you've got to do for yourself, which is
Yes.
what we love. We don't want to be in that financial advisor role. I know better than you, Monty. No, we want to
No.
educate and empower our clients, because the best decisions they'll ever make are the ones that they'll make, because no one understands their life better than they do.
Right.
And so I want to just end with this. The money game is very simple. It's just not easy. And so problem number one is we have to save more money as Americans. Problem number two is we need to save in better savings environments, which is where whole life insurance comes into play. And once we've got our foundation set, we should start investing very intentionally only in things we know and understand. And I would recommend that we invest in things that produce cash flow, reduce your taxes, and tend to appreciate in value over time. And that is what real estate really does. Produces cash flow, reduces your taxes, and also appreciates on average over time. Anytime you can get those three options, buy as many of those assets in the shortest amount of time, and you'll win the money game in a fraction of the time that banks and Wall Street have conditioned us that, hey, you need 30 years to retire.
Yeah.
So if this conversation was compelling to you, if it spoke to you, make sure you go to our website, factumfinancial.com. Check out our free video resources. We've got courses on wealth building, family banking, strategies like real estate investing and whole life. It's all there. And if you're ready to speak to one of our wealth strategists, go ahead and email us at info@factumfinancial.com, and we'll have someone reach out to you, become your mentor, your guide in this process.